What's going on, everybody? Welcome in another edition here of Dangle Bet Selly with myself, Chris Meaney, and the Eric Young, presented by PointsBet Canada, Game Plus Network, FTN Network. We are live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Happy Tuesday. Look at the new set here, the new look. Thanks to our guy, George. Looking fancy. Got the look of the t-shirt.
Yeah.
I know, Brucey, you're going to get it. Oh, and EY's just frozen. Oh, there he is. He's good. He's good. Okay, we're ready to rock here. You were frozen there for a second. We're all good. No worries.
The internet's been real weird, so let's just pray that we get through this.
The internet has been real weird, and I got like 1,000 windows open too, so it may be on me. But yeah, welcome in. We finally have the Stanley Cup final matchup last night. The Vegas Golden Knights went into
just
Dallas
like we all predicted it.
Spank
Vegas Golden Knights versus Florida.
Listen,
the Stanley Cup.
Of course, nobody's really predicting Florida. You know, it's funny. My old man is in a hockey pool, and he's going to take it down because he's got some Florida. And I said to him, because I remember chatting before, and I gave him Dallas. I was like, I really like Dallas. So he said like half Dallas and half Florida. He's already got it locked up because nobody else had Panthers. And it's one of those pools where you just draft, and if you have the guy, nobody else can get him. So, you know, he's got Kachuk and Barkov and Verhaeghe, and
he's already won it.
So he's already won it. You know, he's got Hintz and company. So, but I was saying to him and to other people, like, if you have Florida Panthers on your team in a playoff pool, you're obviously being very contrarian, or you're a Bruins hater, or you're just like here for the chaos. But again, you know, looking at this Stanley Cup final matchup, we have this year's best team in the Western Conference. It wasn't Colorado. It wasn't Edmonton. It was the Vegas Golden Knights, the best team in the Western Conference. And yes, what Florida is doing is, and what they've done has been certainly surprising. A 43-point gap between them and the Bruins, a 19-point gap between them and the Maple Leafs, a 21-point gap between them and the Carolina Hurricanes. But EY, this was the best team in the NHL last year, the Florida Panthers. So we have last year's best team in the Panthers, and we have this year's best Western Conference team that nobody really gave any credit to in the Vegas Golden Knights. It should be a heck of a finals, man. These two teams are super deep, and you know, there's cool stories in goal with both of the squads, and first-time head coaches with these new teams as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's awesome. You know, you'll hear hockey people saying, "Oh, you know, great. Nobody wants to watch this, and you know, it's not good for the NHL." Listen, the people that are going to watch the Stanley Cup are going to watch the Stanley Cup. The reality is, having these two markets go to the Stanley Cup final, and one of these two teams is going to win the Stanley Cup for the first time, you're creating fandom. The unfortunate truth for people like us that love hockey is it is the bastard child of sports in North America. And I understand there's a lot of people in Canada that watch this and are bombarded with coverage. I can tell you that in the United States, it doesn't effing matter. They were showing a 9-1 baseball game in the 9th inning during a playoff game, a semifinal playoff game. They were watching a meaningless baseball game in the middle of the season that means absolutely nothing, that had been over for several innings. This is the company that pays hundreds of millions of dollars to share the NHL, and they decided that whoever it was, two garbage baseball teams playing each other in a game that doesn't matter was more important than the NHL. And that's just the reality. It doesn't move numbers. It doesn't do viewership. It's just the reality of it. And the truth is the game has never been in a better spot health-wise, right? Financial-wise. The Ottawa Senators are going to sell for $1 billion. That's with a B, right? When I can't think of the guy who bought the team. He bought it for whatever it was, 18 million or some insane number. And he's going to sell it. Well, his family's going to sell it for $1 billion, like 10 years later. I don't need to pretend to know anything about business to know that business is good, right? It's improving. And having these two teams, it's really cool that a franchise is going to win the Stanley Cup for the first time, no matter what happens. I think this series is going to be awesome. Everyone says Florida barely snuck in. It just came down to goaltending. They didn't
Is what it is.
get goaltending during the regular season. And then all of a sudden, Sergei Bobrovsky turned back into Sergei Bobrovsky that they thought they were getting 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they signed him to that crazy $10 million deal. He's been unbelievable. He's going, if he keeps playing this way and they win, he's going to win the Conn Smythe.
Well, he is favored. We're going to take a look at the Conn Smythe odds here. We're going to preview the Stanley Cup final matchup. You mentioned the Florida Panthers. They were in the Stanley Cup finals in '96. Of course, they lost to the Colorado Avalanche. They were swept. I'll never forget that run with, the fans throwing all those rats on the ice. And then as for the Vegas Golden Knights, the Vegas Golden Knights here in the finals for the second time, and they've only been in the league for 6 years. They're the 8th team in the NHL to reach 2 finals in their first 6 seasons, 6-2 on the road throughout these playoffs. They were one of the best road teams in the NHL throughout the entire regular season. The only team to have more road wins than Vegas. Yes, you guessed it. The Florida Panthers, they have 8 and 6 of the last 7 road clinching games for the Vegas Golden Knights, W's for them. So game 1 Saturday in Vegas. Florida's going to have like 9 days off here by the time things do get underway. And, it's funny. You mentioned them just squeaking in.
That's a problem. I don't care what anyone says. That's a problem. And they showed a stat on ESPN last night. And all the players, Subban and Chelios and Messier, were like, oh, no, it doesn't matter. Look at the numbers. The numbers clearly state when teams are off that long. This was a team that had built up this unbelievable momentum, right?
But I mean, it is what it is. Like, you can't just you can't be moving dates up. Like, it's just,
you can't.
Why? Like, you have venues, like it's Vegas. There's things going on. Like you just have to kind of map this out. There's two Miami-based teams here, two teams, like 2 metro teams. I saw a stat too. This is the first time, it's a 10th time a metro area has had teams in the NBA and the NHL finals. I think like 2016, the Warriors and the Sharks. But no one, like neither team has won both at the same time. But I get it, the whole break off. But just imagine if Vegas swept Dallas, then it would have been, it would have felt like forever, an eternity for teams to get at it. So it is tough, but
it's going to feel like forever, right? Like
it is like, yeah, we're here.
Just give it to me now.
I agree. Just give it to me now.
Good Lord.
I think at the same time, Florida, you just don't know how much these guys are banged up. Obviously, they want to get right after it because they're down 3. And
everyone's banged up. I don't remember the stat, but they talked about it on ESPN last night. And Chelio said it too. Like it blew my mind when teams have, I think it was like 5 or more days of rest. The percentage of them winning the next series is not 0, but it's not too far off. It's insane, right? It's insane. And you can see it that way, right? I mean, how many times have we saw that in your lifetime? How many times have you saw a team that is just, the
momentum, they're feeling it.
They're feeling it. They just want to play. The players just want to play. They just want to play. I get Bobrovsky is better when he, quote unquote, better when he's rested and this, that, and the other. But you're just in such a mindset and they've been in that mindset for 2.5 months, right? Like every game has been a playoff game for them. And I feel like now they're forced to take their foot off the gas. It wouldn't surprise me if everything falls apart and Vegas comes out and just rolls them. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm not hoping for that. I'm wearing a Florida Panthers jersey. I want the Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup. I do. I mean, Vegas, they're the heels of the bunch, right? Like they're the bad guys.
Yeah, I guess.
They're not the misfits anymore.
I don't know where my
people don't like them.
Lies.
With
probably
the
Vegas.
Fleury stuff and the George Gallant stuff and the Nick Schmidt stuff.
I've always liked them. I like them for so many reasons. I love the city. I think Vegas is just an unbelievable time. I like that they finally tried it out, and they tried it out before everybody else. Like no NBA team there, and there now is an NFL team. There's talk
great
about
leadership, right?
They're going to go
Gary
there.
Bettman, and say what you want about him, but he said no. Pro sports can work in Las Vegas, and now look at it.
Yeah, and And it does work. I've been to 2 live
Oh,
games. I've been to over a dozen regions across the league in the NHL, and
it's one of
I've
the
been to all
best.
the Canadian arenas. And this one is it's just an unbelievable atmosphere. They put on a show like you would assume you're in Vegas. It's fantastic. I love the way that they were aggressive with their builds. Yeah, they got pretty fortunate with the expansion draft. A lot of teams learned a thing or
Yep.
two the second time around with the Kraken, but
Which I
these guys got
prefer,
great
right?
players.
Like the
But
NHL figured it out.
sure,
Expansion
but they
teams
were
were awful. Think about
They
like
were awful.
Florida and
Yeah, I mean, you
Tampa.
can go back to the early '90s, and the Sharks team was
Brutal.
like just historically
Brutal.
pathetic. But yeah, so they learned I guess like the second time around, teams learn a thing or two. But look at the success from the Kraken. So you could say that maybe
Yep.
they didn't even learn a thing or two because the Kraken went to this. They forced Dallas to a seventh game in the second round, and they had a great season in year two. But Vegas has been super aggressive as well. Trading a lot of that doesn't really work out, but you can tell right away this is a team that wanted to win. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals in their first year, lost to the Caps. They wanted to win. They've traded a ton of prospects away, like Nick Suzuki and Cody Glass, and a ton of
Yep.
first-round picks for, Mark Stone and Pat Chiaretti and Jack Eichel. Like, they've made some moves, and think about their story as well. Aiden Hill. We're going to go over free agents on this show a little bit later on. I got a list of goalie free agents, defensemen, and forwards. It's not a great class, but both Vegas goalies here. I say both, but even though they're down to like fifth, sixth goalies, Jonathan Quick, Laurent Brossoit, Aiden Hill, they're all free agents, right? The off season started with Robin Leonard potentially as their guy, went to Logan Thompson, who suffered an injury. So they've been through so much. I love their story. I think my heart probably lies with Vegas, but the true underdog story, if you are a big fan of underdogs, it's really the Florida Panthers and what 100%. They've done and empowering through three juggernauts. And again, to wrap this thing up, they're going to have to beat the best team in the Western Conference that not only have been to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2 of their first 6 years. This is a team that's been to multiple Western Conference Finals. Right?
They've got experience.
I 2 others. Yeah.
Right.
Tons of experience up and down their lineup already. The only guy I think that was completely raw was really Jack Eichel. And then, of course, Aiden Hill. But the fact that, Mark Stone said it too. The guys in this room that they know what it takes to win a cup, and Alex Pietrangelo and Alec Martinez, who has 2. Like, that blue line is just vicious. Then they have guys that have been to the dance and that couldn't get it done. And also think about, there's going to be so many different storylines, right? There's going to be Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault, right? When they go to Florida, they were part of the Panthers, and it was like, here, if we give you Marchessault, can you take Riley Smith too? Like, that's how the expansion draft went. It was like, we'll give you this stud,
take Riley Smith,
but please take this guy off my roster because we can't afford him, right? Like, that was a big boo-boo by the Panthers. There's no question. So it's all cool. A lot of cool little storylines here. And we're going to get into just, do you have any final thoughts on how the series went against the Stars and what you saw from last night? It was just
last night, we were going back and forth because we're lunatics.
I knew they were going to come out strong, and they did.
Holy jeez. Dallas was asleep at the wheel, man. Like that. I mean, easily that's the worst effort they've put forth all playoffs. Our Ottinger was not sharp. I think he's, obviously fatigued.
He was fatigued. Very mediocre all playoffs. I mean, the worst goal saved above average too out of all the goalies.
He was not the Jake Ottinger that we all thought was going to happen, right? Like, I mean, the playoffs before, no one could score on him, and he was not the same goalie this year. Obviously, great efforts by Pavelski. Robertson really came into his own. Another reason I'm cheering for Florida is because William Karlsson ruined a bet. I said that Robertson would score the most goals. I put a sizable amount down and was going to win a sizable amount when Steve Dangle was on the show. I said it was 650, and I put a sizable, and if Karlsson doesn't score that goal last night, I win.
What a beautiful way too last night. Right?
And I want, he scored that first one, and it was great. I'm like, okay, Robertson's holding on. Robertson can still score, put another 2 goals, and then he scores again, and now it's tied between Karlsson and Robertson. I still win. I still won some money, but damn, William Karlsson. Just play defense, brother. Just play defense.
I'm going over some of my futures here this morning. We had an awful day yesterday over at FTN Bets, but I think some of our futures here look pretty good. For example, we had Rupe Hintz over Jack Eichel for goals. Eichel had 0 goals in the series, and Rupe Hintz had 1 goal. We had the one we didn't get was Robinson versus Marchessault for goals. Marchessault was making it close there at the end, 4 goals.
Yeah.
We had Joe Pavelski over Miro Heiskanen for points. That was a 2-unit play. Man, we had to sweat that one out. We had 4 points for Pavelski, 3 for Miro Heiskanen. I had a 2-unit play on Marchessault over Chandler Stevenson. Did not have to really sweat that one out. Stevenson had the 4 and Marchessault had the 7 points. We had Rupe Hintz more points than Mark Stone. That was another 2-unit play. Stone with just the 3 points in the series. And as I mentioned, Hintz there with the 5 points. A terrific run, I think, for a lot of people. You and I, a lot of people on this show really like Rupe Hintz. And it was a nice breakout. I don't want to say breakout, but it was kind of like, here I am. Here's one of the best centers in the league that you guys don't talk about, right?
Reaffirmation. Right. We've been talking about this guy. I mean, I drafted him in that league that we were in together a couple of years ago, and almost at the end of the draft, and he played every other game because he was hurt all season. So he was like, but he would score if he played, and he had an unreal season. It was like, if he can stay healthy, and then we saw it this year. I mean, dude, he was unreal all year, and in the playoffs, especially early on, he turned into an animal. What a player, man. I mean, that one draft, Hintz, Robertson, Ottinger, Dallas set themselves up for eternity, it feels like, right? I mean, Wyatt Johnson's going to be a stud.
Oh, yeah.
Hanley and Harley are both, I mean, they've got to shoot Ryan
Harley
Suter
was impressive.
The moon. I mean,
he's done. He's near the end of his career. He's slow as
dude, he was. And this is a guy that I loved. I mean, watching him.
He's just near the end of his career.
He's awful.
Yeah,
awful.
Yeah.
The only thing he can do is take bad penalties.
Right. There was a moment, I mean, back in their heyday with Weber and Suter, those two guys were phenomenal in Nashville.
Two of the best in the league.
Most people probably were in the camp that Weber was much better, but I thought Suter was very, very underrated in what he brought to the table. Yeah. My goal scorer leaders with Hintz and Marchessault, didn't get either of them, but I had Marchessault at 18-1 for the most points in the series. We got lucky getting it last night. He does finish with the most points in the series, the 7. Robertson had 6. Barbashev had 6. And then
he's getting paid, right?
Not your boy, but Carlson.
Someone's gonna put him on the list. Someone's gonna regret. Someone's gonna put him on the list. I love Barbashev, but he's gonna get paid, and it's gonna not be good.
I don't know if he's gonna get like $5+ million, but I'd say he's working himself into maybe knocking on the door of a contract like that for what he's bringing to the table. I think he's very underrated.
Aiden Hill's getting paid somewhere.
He might win the Conn Smythe. We might have to get into that. I mean, he could. He really could, because I know it. I know that you know this, but I want to bring it up anyways. Like, clearly Jake Ottinger wasn't himself, even though he made some big saves. But you're on your home ice. You lost 6-0. You got to score a goal for the guy. And then when the game that Ben had the freak out, they lost 4-0 in that game too. So Ottinger didn't live up to. He got outplayed by Aiden Hill, but his team also didn't give him too much support on home ice. In must-win situations, down 2-0 in the series, Ben does that. Then last night, getting back into this series, knowing Vegas was going to start strong. I knew Vegas was going to start extremely strong, but I thought Dallas was going to be able to kind of weather the storm and push back a little bit. But anyways, Aiden Hill, from the moment he came into the series against the Oilers, the game that I was at in Edmonton, game 6, the clinching game, I thought he was phenomenal in that game as well. Now, all of a sudden, you got him with 2 shutouts here. And I think that you could make a case for potentially 4 or 5, maybe different Golden Knights to win the Conn Smythe. Aiden Hill, Jonathan Marchessault has closed the gap on Eichel. Eichel was the favorite for Vegas heading into the 3rd round. Marchessault has closed that gap significantly with another 4 goals. He led everybody in round 2 in goals and points. Like, he had that good of a round 2. And then here in round 3, he backed it up. So if he has another, we got him in the tracker for Conn Smythe. We're going to get to it in a second. For what was it? 31-1 at FanDuel. And his number is still double digits. We're going to get into it in a second, but I think we gave Hill as a little sprinkle maybe last week at 20-1. He's still
We
roughly
talked about
12
it,
to 1, 14 to 1. So there's a lot of different. I mean, William Karlsson too. Yeah, he's producing, but what he does defensively, right? Matched up, did what he could against McDavid. And then I thought did a really good job for the most part against the Robertson line. Like had them in fits, especially at the start of the series when William Karlsson and Riley Smith were great. And now I would assume Paul Maurice won't really play the matchup game as much as what Bruce Cassidy will do. What would you think? William Karlsson, Riley Smith matched up against the Kachuk line or the Barkov line? I kind of feel like the Barkov line is a little pick your poison, but I kind of feel like the Barkov line is a little bit more dangerous with Carter Verhaeghe and Anthony Duclair. But Cassidy will play that matchup game, and they'll get it early. We'll see it because the series starts at home in Vegas on Saturday.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision, right? And Karlsson has been the go-to guy to match up against all of the top lines, right? Like that's what Bruce Cassidy wants. He wants Karlsson and Smith on the ice when those guys are on the ice to limit chances, limit high danger, and he's done it with, I mean, just brutal efficiency, man. He's been such a good player. The best thing about him right now is not only is he doing that, which is wild, right? Shutting down these elite players, he's also scoring at the same time, right? He's just on another level, right? I mean, he's not the 48 goal or whatever he was the year he scored all those goals, but he's just an unbelievable player on both sides of the puck and is maybe the most valuable player for the Golden Knights this season.
20 minutes in, want to say what up to the crew. Then we're going to show some Conn Smythe stuff. We'll have an early look. Again, we're going to be back with you guys on Thursday to break down the game even more. We'll have some series props. I think, some are starting to surface over at Sportsbooks. We're going to bring up the NHL goal leaders for this series like we've been doing. So we'll take a stab at a couple players there as well. But I do want to say what up to the crew here. Adam Szymanski in the house. Morning, boys. Welcome in, Adam. One of our faves here. You guys are all our faves. Bruce East 91. Morning, gents. Let's do this. Cup finals being held where palm trees grows and the desert blows. It is interesting, right? I mean, we have two Southern Florida 8 seeds in the finals. The Miami Heat punched their ticket into the NBA Finals last night as well. Daily Handle with Jordan Allen in the house. Good morning, EY, Means, and everyone. Stanley Cup Finals this Saturday. Let's go. Let's get after it. EY, you sound great, brother. Hope surgery went well. We love that.
It did. It did.
Shirt is headed your way, Brazil. You're going to get it soon. I promise you, dude. Did see the email. Adam Szymanski, Florida's definitely not a Cinderella story. They were underachieving team that won the President's Trophy last year, too. What's interesting about the President's Trophy curse, and I think we brought this up last week, 3 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winners had won the President's Trophy the year before the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
Excuse me. We saw it with the Capitals, saw it with the Lightning, we saw it with the Avalanche, and Florida potentially here this year. Florida's my lean with goaltending edge, but I haven't had a good read on Vegas. All playoffs should be a doozy. Yeah, Aiden Hill's playing really good. He's playing really good at the moment. He's just a big body goalie. Vegas is pretty structured too, the way that they play. It should be really good. I think I have a lean to Vegas at the moment, but it is really tough to call. Final schedule is way too spread out, but I get it with the travel. It is. Yeah, you're going to see game 2, I think Monday, then game 3 and Thursday in Florida. So it is spread out pretty good. Say word in the house. There's a parade inside my city, eh? I think maybe you'll get one, and I don't think it's going to be the Miami Heat. I think that the Nuggets are going to make quick work of the Miami Heat, but it could be wrong there. Ooh, what is calling them? Bugs and spiders from the roof. What's happening? What was that? I don't even want to see. I'll have to reply. I'll have to watch the video again. I don't do well with like insects. Do you? Are you see?
Oh, it doesn't bother me.
No, you go camping all the time. You're fine. I can't.
I used to be terrified of snakes, and then I did a TV show where I had to catch pythons in the Everglades, and I had to handle these huge. We caught a 10-foot and a 13-foot python in the Everglades by hand.
You can keep talking. I'm gonna kill this spider.
Then I was over my fear of snakes, but I was I wouldn't say deathly afraid. Like if I saw it and I was like, okay, I see you, snake. I still don't like them, but I'm definitely not afraid of them. Handled tarantulas on the show and scorpions. Tarantulas are awesome. They're so soft. and they're so cool. And they just, I had like walking on my arm and walking up on my neck and stuff.
No,
awesome.
thanks.
They don't bite you unless you like step on them. Like they only bite for defense. They're harmless, really. But they're awesome.
It's my biggest fear, actually, was doing a live show. I went away when I went to Edmonton. I wasn't in this room in the basement in the office for a couple of days, and I came back and I saw a couple spiders. I'm like, oh man, it's my worst fear to do a live show and a spider follow me, and that just happened. I was golfing last year.
You handled it well.
Not bad. It could have been way
not
worse.
Bad. You didn't scream or anything.
I didn't scream. I was like, whoa, what was that? We may have to get Georgia Rewind the tape and watch like it actually fall down. It's pretty nasty. I was golfing last year and I was looking for my ball, of course, in the woods off to the side, and I had just found it and I was about to I was setting up my approach to shoot, and this little snake went in between both of my feet, and I did one of the woo like good jump. I mean, you got shorts on, I don't know, man, I don't want that stuff. Anyways, we'll continue to say what up here through the crew. I'm sure there's some spider comments here and we catch up. Yes, parade in your city. Okay. Adam, don't think the layoff is going to impact Florida. These guys are more focused than if there's a break during the regular season. Extra rest going to get more healthy, important. It may be a little bit of a slow start. But I think when it's all said and done, it'll be full go. Take a little bit to get into it. Leave Van, go Dallas.
Go Dallas.
Go Dallas. Yeah, they're done. As we go, yeah, palm trees with Florida. Vegas is wide open. Conn Smythe, potentially for Hill. Barkov line, I do agree. Nobody's afraid of Nick Cousins. Oh, Hammerhead in the house. Florida in 6, calling a shot right now. Good morning, Andrew Burnett to Columbus. Rumblings huge. I saw on DraftKings too. They have odds, of course they do. Actually, I think it was Bet365. There's futures for the Leafs to be who's going to be the next GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I forget.
Steve Dangle's on the list.
This isn't even
That's a true thing. Yeah. Well, for I can't remember the betting thing in Canada that sponsor those guys, and I'm not giving away free plugs, but they put him in. Or something? Yeah. No, it's Sports Logic, I think that's what it's called.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sports Logic. Man, I just saw it before I come on. I thought it was on Bet365 and not DraftKings. Anyways, I think it was Brad Treliving is the favorite there. I saw Mark Bergevin on that list as well, which is interesting. See what happens there. Just great to hear the surgery went well. Yes. Okay. We'll get into it. Scare Group Report. It's hard to keep up with you guys. A lot of Blue Jackets talk here.
Troy,
the Blue Jackets.
Blue Jackets haven't played an important hockey game in 6 months, and he's all over.
They haven't.
I agree that Vorkanov or whatever his name is, he looks awesome.
Yeah, trust me, Dimitri. Is the Russian Tom Wilson? Thank me later. Okay, these are the Conn Smythe odds. First we'll say Florida is favored to win the series at -130, and the Panthers are +110. This is what Game 1 looks like. I mean, we're gonna use a prop shop to get the best possible odds, parlay calculator. So you see the series prices there at the bottom. Game 1, Vegas can be favored here, and 5.5 is the total. Do you feel like you're going to see a high scoring series? Because both of these goalies have been really good, but man, these teams are 3 lines deep. And what I really like about them is, from an offensive standpoint, Brandon Montour's had the breakout campaign, but man, he can bring it. Ekblad, Forsling is underrated. Then on the other side, I keep going to Shea Theodore. I wish books would give me the 2.5. I think I seen it once and I went to it and it didn't hit, but it's been 1.5 juice. Alex Pietrangelo has been at 2.5 at +145. Both teams have 3 lines that can bring it, and they're well balanced. Sam Reinhart on your third line, right? William Karlsson and Riley Smith, quote unquote, on your third line. Stevenson on a line with Stone and Eichel and Marsh. So, and plus defensively, they can bring it too. Do you view this as a high scoring series?
I mean, not if the goaltending continues, right? I mean, Bobrovsky's been. There's all this talk of the expected goals and all this other stuff, and that the public numbers don't really reflect the private numbers, and let's just get some numbers that everyone can see and we have act like, I don't know why there's different numbers. The part of it is with numbers, you can twist and bend numbers to say whatever you want, right? Like, you've been doing this long enough. I've been doing this for a couple years now. If I want to find numbers to back up what I'm saying, they're available to me somewhere, unless what I'm saying is completely insane, right? Like, it's just true. Math can be manipulated and numbers can be bent to tell whatever narrative you want. The truth is Bobrovsky, unless you've been watching the games with your eyes closed, he's been their most important player. He's been unbelievable. From after Boston won that third game, he was so-so. They won the third game. You're like, okay, they're done. Then they win that game in overtime, and he's been lights out ever since. Adin Hill has been good, no doubt about it, but not at Bobrovsky's level. I think there's going to be scoring.
His numbers are actually better. I understand what you're saying, and he's played more games. Like 14 games for Bobrovsky. He's got a .935 save percentage, a 2.21 goals against average. He's got a 14.52 goals saved above average. And then Adin Hill's played 11 games. He's played roughly almost 300 minutes fewer. But that's not going to matter if he outplays Bobrovsky and he gets, a couple more shutouts in the finals. His save percentage is .937, so just slightly above, and a 2.07 goals against average. You got the 10.40 expected goals saved above average. And like the 5-5 numbers, I mean, both of these guys are just absolutely ballers at the moment. A .952 save percentage at 5-5 for Bobrovsky, and a .951 save percentage for Adin Hill. 1.52 goals against average for Bob, and the 1.58 for Adin Hill. I mean, these guys, their numbers kind of stack up side by side, but one guy has played more minutes, right? More minutes, and Adin Hill just kind of came into the second series, but very similar stuff, right? Like one guy comes in for an injury and the other one comes in just because he's the $10 million backup and you got to go to him. Conn Smythe. So Bob's favored. He's been favored now for a couple weeks. He kind of overtook this, I think, just after game two against the Carolina Hurricanes. He's been the favorite ever since. Plus 210. Matthew Tkachuk at plus 290. Jack Eichel at plus 425. William Karlsson with a massive bump here in terms of moving up the Conn Smythe Trophy odds board. He's at plus 700. Marchessault again at plus 700. So feeling pretty good about the 31-1 for Marchessault that we have in the bet tracker. Of course, they would need to win. I don't think we're going to see even Bobrovsky. This guy could maybe get 3 shutouts and stand on his head. I don't think he's going to win the Conn Smythe unless his Panthers win the Stanley Cup. Mark Stone at 9-1. Adin Hill, a massive jump here from 20 to 12. Chandler Stevenson, Alexander Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe there. Verhaeghe at 50-1 and Barkov at 51. Pretty interesting stuff here. Hintz does lead the playoffs in points at 24. Matthew Tkachuk is next at 21. Jack Eichel's got 18. Marchessault has 17. Stone has 15. Barbashev has 15. And William Karlsson and Chandler Stevenson, along with Barkov, have 14 points each. As for the goal leaders here in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it is Draisaitl still with 13 in 12 games. Hintz has 10. William Karlsson has 10 goals. Matthew Tkachuk is 9. Jonathan Marchessault 9. This is completely wide open on the Vegas side of things. It's completely wide open. Eichel, these guys all have similar points. Karlsson has the 10 goals. Marchessault is 1 goal behind. Adin Hill's been fantastic. So I mean, the value is really here with Vegas. Because we already have a Marchessault one at 31-1, probably won't go down that road for newcomers looking to have a little bit of a sprinkle here on the finals. But I think the play may be Adin Hill, dude. I think the play may be Adin Hill at 12-1 to win the Conn Smythe. What do you think about that?
I can say, as you were discussing it, I was looking at it and be like, there's no way I'm not putting a sizable bet on Adin Hill, because I see, for me, out of that list, I see the easiest pass for Adin Hill to win the Conn Smythe. And the reason why is because of the stat and the stuff I learned yesterday about how much rest the Florida Panthers have got and how poorly that affects teams going into the Stanley Cup final. Also, like you said, the best team in the West was Vegas. Like, this wasn't a fluke. I think Florida was a very good team that couldn't get goaltending and then got goaltending at the right time. Like, if the Florida Panthers are in the West, they're not even in the playoffs. The Calgary Flames had more points than the Florida Panthers, and they didn't even play in the playoffs. It's a wild story. It just comes down to goaltending, but I just put a sizable bet on Adin Hill to win it. I believe, my belief right now in my gut is that Vegas is going to pound Florida in game one, and I think that could affect Bobrovsky's confidence. I think Adin Hill could very easily get a shutout in the first game and be their most important player down the stretch and win the Conn Smythe. So thanks for talking me into it.
There you go. Adin Hill. Use the prop shop to get the best possible odds. You may find a little bit of a better number out there, but 12-1 certainly is still some value. And if he does start strong, I mean, he's on a pretty good run right now. Right, he's got a couple shutouts in the last few games. Even though they lost at home that 3-2 game, my goodness, that guy made like highlight reel save after highlight reel save. Yeah, he was fantastic in there. These are the goal scoring leader odds for the series. Tkachuk's at plus 450. Actually, why don't you just pick somebody and I'll tell you. Sometimes the numbers and the odds can screw a guy up. Give me a who do you think will lead the Stanley Cup Finals in goals?
I actually put a couple sprinkles today.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Matthew Tkachuk. I think that's what the books think as well. So there's not a ton to be gained there. I've got a sneaky suspicion about Sam Bennett. And if I was going to bet on somebody to lead, I'm going to say Jack Eichel. He's snake bit, and I think he gets over that. And I think he leads Vegas in points.
A couple bars in the last round. Yeah. A couple posts in the last round. Tkachuk is favored at plus 450. Eichel is plus 550. Marchessault 6-1. Verhaeghe is 6-1. Barkov's 9-1. Stone is 10-1. Sam Bennett is 12. Reinhart is 12. William Karlsson's 13-1. Stevenson's 14-1. Riley Smith at 16. Then we get a little bit deeper here. Barbashev at 22-1. I really liked Anthony Duclair's game in the last round. I just thought, it takes a lot of time to come back from an injury like that, an Achilles injury. And I thought he was, through the first 3 games, man, he had a lot of chances. He led the Panthers in expected goals as well. I thought he was pretty good. He's at 45-1. Like, if I'm going to do a little small sprinkle, it's on somebody like that, who is, playing on that top line. Like, Duclair is playing with really good players in Verhaeghe and Barkov. So I don't mind that small sprinkle at 45-1. I just think Marchessault is red hot. Like, I think he's one of the hottest players going at the moment. Like, obviously Matthew Tkachuk is as well. Like, he had some big goals in the third round, but he didn't score any goals against the Leafs. And really, since the start of the second round, you and I chatted before we got on. Jonathan Marchessault had a down year. Where was this guy? From a fantasy hockey standpoint, people were dropping him. They were asking us what to do with him. He had a down year, and in the playoffs, he's especially since the start of the second round, he's been fantastic. I think for me, that's the way I would go. I like the 2 shooters, and they're both at 6-1 for Verhaeghe and Marchessault. Those are the 2 guys I would take a look at. I don't know if Karlsson continues to keep this up. Barkov's really good defensively in his own way. So if that's the matchup, William Karlsson against Barkov, like, I don't know. I think Barkov is a little bit more smarter defensively than the Dallas trio that William Karlsson had to go up against. But I would lean with Marchessault and Verhaeghe for the most points. Tkachuk is favored at plus 240, Eichel at 380, Barkov at 475, then Stone at 10-1. I go right back to Marchessault at 13-1. I think that there's really good value there for him to lead the series in points, and Verhaeghe at 15-1. I think both of those guys for sure to lead the series in points. Okay, we only have about 5 more minutes. Again, we're going to be back on Thursday. Love to hear you guys' thoughts. My initial lean is on Vegas. You think Vegas is going to smack them maybe in that first game, but your heart, I think, lies with the Panthers.
I will be cheering for Florida, but I think Vegas wins this series, and I got a sneaky suspicion it's going to be over quick. And that's just a gut. That's a gut feel.
I think it goes at least 6. I think it goes at least 6. But the one thing with Vegas, like, Florida's been really good on the road in these playoffs. So Vegas has been good all year on the road, and they could start at home here as well. We're going to do a little bit of a sneak peek here of the free agent class. We're going to get out of here in just a few minutes, but these are things that we're going to have to talk about. We're going to, not have to, we want to, of course, but we're going to be with you guys until the end of June. The Stanley Cup is going to be raised before then. we're going to wrap up Dango Batselli this season with free agency talk, some draft talk and some fantasy hockey talk as well. Like sneak peek at next year's rankings, some buy low candidates for those playing in keeper and dynasty leagues and things like that. But let's start here with the free agent class. And it's not fantastic. It really isn't that great. But these are the list of forwards here. So of course we had a couple Rangers on the board, Patrick Kane, former Hawk Ranger, Riley Smith, former Blue. Like a lot of these guys, of course, were shipped off at the deadline, but I'll read them off here for the iTunes and Spotify listeners. Patrick Kane, Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Pacioretty, he's going to come back from an Achilles injury again. It's going to be a tough road for him. Jordan Stahl, Jonathan Taves, Sean Monahan, Jason Zucker, Ivan Barbashev, Jonathan Drouin, and Max Domi, Evan Rodriguez, Michael Bunting, and JVR. Not a lot of appealing names on this list. I still think Kane has something to offer. Maybe he does some offseason hip surgery. There's been some reports of that. I still think he can offer something to a team. Riley Smith, definitely to me looked really slow in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but certainly can bring something to the table more than leadership. Defensive abilities still kind of there for him. Tarasenko, I believe, can bring something to the table. Tyler Bertuzzi, I think, would be a really good get. Jordan Stahl is a good defensive center. Carolina's got some free agents as we roll through some of this a little bit later on. But when you look at that list, is there an appealing name to you? Is there one guy that you're like, oh, man, maybe not wish the Leafs would get there, but you know is going to be a hot commodity come July 1st?
I mean, for me, it's Tyler Bertuzzi. I think he's the best. He's not considered an old player. Ryan O'Reilly, great player, but I mean, he's definitely on the tail end. Patrick Kane, tail end. Pacioretty, tail end. Jordan Stahl, tail end. Jonathan Taves may not play hockey ever again. Monahan, old. Zucker, old. Drouin, old. Van Riemsdyk, old. Bunting, I think, is a good player, but with what we saw with his reputation, he just taking so many penalties. I think he's a great player. I think he's a very effective player. I think he's going to be gone too. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in Toronto? It is very, very turbulent time for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But out of this list, Tyler Bertuzzi is, I think, the best. And I've heard, I was reading a thing yesterday, I think, saying that he wants to be in Boston, and they're working and getting pretty close to that. So
I could see him staying. Yeah, he's like a just prototypical.
He's a Boston Bruin.
Yeah,
right?
He really is. I really like Sean Monahan's game before the injury, but man, it's been back-to-back years now where he's had issues staying healthy. Drouin can't score goals. Maybe a change of scenery can do him wonders there. Let's go over to the defensemen: Dmitry Orlov, John Klingberg, Matthew Dumba. We got Shane Gostisbehere, Brian Dumoulin, Damon Severson, Ryan Graves, Vladislav Gavrikov, Radko Gudas, and Scott Mayfield. So again, like not a lot of marquee names here. I think Orlov is fantastic, and I'm sure the Bruins are going to want to do what they can to keep him, but you can't keep everybody. John Klingberg. I did leave a couple, like I left Bergeron off the forwards. Like he's either going to retire, he's going to come back as a Bruin. I might lean retire, to be honest, if I had a choice between the two. I'd like to see him stick around, but my gut tells me he's done. John Klingberg, Matthew Dumba, Gostisbehere. So some defensemen there. Again, not a lot of marquee names. And here's the goalies as we kind of transition to the netminders. Is there's just a lot of Hurricanes on the board here. Frederik Andersen, Antti Ranta. For Carolina, we got Tristan Jarry, Jonas Korpisalo, Cam Talbot, Semyon Varlamov, Aiden Hill, Jonathan Quick, Laurent Brossoit is not even on this list, James Reimer, Halak, a bunch of other different backups there across the league. You see anything Carolina going to move on from both of these guys, maybe keep one of them?
I mean, Frederik Andersen was very, very good. You can say whatever you want about the Carolina Hurricanes. You can say what you want about him in the playoffs. They lost because they couldn't score. Frederik Andersen was really, really good against Florida. Up and down in the other series, but I mean, he was really, really good. I mean, they just kind of have been a team that's just kind of like, they just move on, right? They're just going to look for value somewhere. I think I remember the stats being Antti Ranta actually was better in the regular season than Frederik Andersen is. But my feeling is that they'll keep Andersen, but I mean, they're not afraid to move on from goalies. I mean,
Kochekov's it's going to be his goal, right? I mean, he's the young
eventually
rookie,
right? Is he ready now? I mean, I don't know.
They may bring back Ranta. Ranta
Yep.
could be cheaper. I think he should be cheaper, and then just
Yep.
kind of roll with him maybe, and then go Kochetkov and the duo there. Other goalies that are not on
None
this
of these
list
other
that
guys did themselves any favor, right? Like, who wants
no,
Tristan
no,
Jarry? Nobody.
no,
Who
no.
wants Cam
Corpusalo would be
Talbot?
a good get.
Nobody. Varlamov, I mean, his value was very high the last few years. This was maybe his worst year in 4 or 5 years, right? Like
Yeah,
the Islanders did himself and themselves, more importantly, no favors. Aiden Hill's going to get paid.
yeah.
Period.
I
I
I
think it's
think
going to
he
come down
probably
to.
sticks in Vegas.
I think so too. And the truth is I think if he's smart, and I'm not saying that he's not. I mean, all these guys have people advising them, but he's turned into the goalie that a lot of people thought he was going to be, and I think it's because of Sean Burke. Sean Burke is the goalie coach there, and they're built the same, and you can see like there's all these talk about goalies, how he plays from the goal line out now and plays a little deeper in his crease because he's so big and he can. He doesn't need to come out as much and be as aggressive because of his size, and he's been unbelievable for Vegas. He's been really, really good.
But they got Robin Leonard and Logan Thompson too, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But
Yep.
I mean, if Hill wins the Stanley Cup and he's fantastic, he wins a Conn Smythe, I mean, how do you not find a way to keep this guy around? A couple other goalies that I wanted to throw at you that are just wow, like flash in the pan, like you just like, oh man, I remember him. He hasn't been around for a while. That are free agents that, of course, are just done in the NHL. Ben Bishop will finally be off the books. He's actually a member of the Buffalo Sabres. If you remember, we just forgot about that. Jonathan Bernier, right? Jonathan Bernier, Anton Khudobin, who had a run for the Dallas Stars a few years ago. Mike Smith, Corey Schneider, Martin Jones. Like there's just like a lot of some of the Malcolm Subban, some of these other guys that have been around and buried for a little bit, especially Bernier. Like that contract was brutal, making over $4 million there for the Devils. And then Ben Bishop was just one of the better goalies in the NHL just a few years ago. Like that guy was phenomenal, man. Yeah. Elias Lindholm linked to a trade with Columbus. Yeah, listen, the Flames are going to make some moves. He's got a year left in his deal. So we could see that. But you know what, Troy? I don't know if you want that. I don't think you need to be giving up pieces. You're kind of in a rebuild here. You want to be giving picks and pieces away for Elias Lindholm 1 year. Who knows if you're going to stick around in Columbus? Like those teams that are building, I don't like when they make those trades. If you want this player, see if you can get him through free agency, but don't be trading picks and prospects away for 1 year of Elias Lindholm and him potentially moving on. I mean, if you could do a sign and trade, great. If you can extend them, you make that move, but be interesting. Blue Jackets are one of those teams that are near the bottom, like in terms of like they're going to pick near the top of the draft. But of all those teams that are going to pick near the top of the draft, I think they're the team that can turn things around the quickest. So we'll see what happens there with your Blue Jackets. We got to get out of here. On Thursday, we'll have more series props. We'll hammer home some picks. We'll lock in some futures and things like that. But it does sound like we both have a lean to the Vegas Golden Knights here. And I think there's some value on this board when it comes to Aiden Hill at 12-1. And especially if you already have a little bit of a sprinkle on Marchessault or, Bob from the last round at 10-1 from watching the show. Okay. Thanks so much. Any final words here from you, EY?
No, happy hockey, everybody. I'm going to probably have to watch some Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'ems in the next couple of days. Just get my fix.
Nice. Very nice. VHS Rock'em Sock. I get like a
12. I'm sure it's illegal. It's some weird bootleg from like Turkey. But it has every Don Cherry's Rock'em Sock'em on DVD. And it's amazing. There you go. I watch it when I have late puck drops in my rec league team.
All right. Yeah, a lot of it amps you up. I used to do the same thing when I was younger and high school hockey or some AAA stuff. Just hammer on some Rock'em Sock'em hockey, get the boys firing up for the big game. All right, we're out of here. Cheers. We'll be back on Thursday. Have a good one.